Whoa!
What's up, everybody? It's great to see y'all again. We have a newcomer. Technically, it's the second time on the video. We got Tobias over here.
Hello.
And since Hoodie and ABF have already done a review for this on our channel, since in celebration of it actually breaking even and now it's making some money, we're going to come back for a little bit of a more deeper, into-depth talk. We have some highly nerdy folks when it comes to the Alien franchise, and we just kind of want to delve into it deeper. So that's what we're gonna do today. Hoodie, how you doing, brother?
Doing great, doing great. Thank you for inviting me on to talk about the Alien franchise and Alien Romulus in particular. I'm glad to be here, ready to nerd out.
And Tobias, you just saw this for the first time yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, me and Red watched it last night at the theater, and
Still having a
you definitely have
theatrical.
to see it at the theater.
Well, in order to brush up for it, I just did my second watch of it literally 30 minutes ago before we started this. So it's fresh on my brain as well. But Tobias, first, since there's already a review on this channel, how about you give us your thoughts about the movie as a whole, and then we can move on from there.
I really enjoyed up until like the last 20 minutes. So I greatly enjoyed that. It felt like an Alien movie. Like it felt like it belonged as part of the universe. Like you had all the old style tech, the retro futuristic, I think is what it's technically called. Like you had the giant screens and the bulky computers and everything like that. It felt like, hey, this kind of feels like what Alien and Aliens was like. And then as you go through it, it's a great homage to the original. It starts out nice and slow with just kind of building that tension, giving you a reason to actually care about the characters. And especially the guy who played Andy. That was a great. I just loved how he went from being like, I don't want to say broken exactly, but like the stuttering and kind of the, hey, my directive has been, to take care of this girl this entire time after her dad rebuilt me or essentially
Mm-hmm.
reprogrammed me to kind of be her guardian. And then when the company one takes over and you see him literally like go into full shutdown restart mode and you see his eyes roll back with the way you symbol and the serial number. And all that time you have the tension of the face huggers swimming around. And it's like stuff like that really gets it for me. It makes it feel like an actual tense movie. Like
Mm-hmm. I
this
agree
is
with you.
this is a thing that you don't know if everyone's going to survive or not.
You know, one thing I really liked about the actor who played Andy is that he used his natural, like, you know how his eyes were just always almost sad looking, like almost sad squinty.
Yeah, he kind
He
of had
used
that.
that.
It was like a minor suspicion kind of look. Like I'm not really sure.
But it completely worked from broken android to hyper intelligent android, like being more analytical and also being like, what the hell's going on? Like, I'm just here to protect brain. It worked in both ways. I think that was masterful.
I like
Agreed.
how it kind of slowed. It showed the progression of his software being overridden.
Hmm.
Like it started out like the restart and it's just, oh, now I have security clearance, now I can I can open this door. And then it's like as he goes further along you realize, wait, something's definitely going on because he's acting completely differently as well,
Hmm.
before you realize, oh, he is now overridden by company orders.
Yes, it no longer goes from should I do it because Rain's telling me to do it, but like I can open this door, but should I? Because then it becomes way more calculating.
Yeah, like I liked how they did the scene where they have to go through the door and it's like I timed the closing of the door perfectly. And it's like, was that just him being, this advanced android with better timing systems or, higher advanced like timing systems installed? Or is that suspicious because, hey, he might not be working for you anymore?
Or is it the other thing? Because those two chips, Andy was still in there, but then the Wutani core thing was on top of it. So was it the Wutani core thing? Is like I calculated perfectly, but that little part of Andy was just like I finally did something right. Like, be proud
Yeah,
of
I
me.
actually
I
managed to
timed
save
it
somebody.
perfectly for once. I don't know. I mean, obviously, and it's neither here nor there, but I just thought it was funny.
like I said, it shows that progression. It's like, wait, did he actually time that perfectly because of the update, or did he purposely wait that long just in case that he got grabbed?
Hmm.
And you're kind of wondering, like, was it intentional that he almost closed it on him, or was it he waiting just for that right moment so that the facehuggers don't follow him out?
Well, I mean,
I'm.
going back to sorry, go ahead, Hoodie, you first.
I was just gonna say maybe it's up for interpretation. Maybe that's kind of they want you to think about it.
Yeah, like I said, it was that progression. It's like at that point, you're not really sure if Andy is still Andy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Going back to the little thing that I just brought up, also is like maybe that little part of Andy's in there that knows he wants to protect her most of all. If he can help the other person, sure, but he has no problem blocking anyone else out for his, you know, his secondary now prime directive.
Yeah, like one thing I actually told Red as we were watching the thing where they kind of explained how I can't remember his name, uh, the cousin was like, oh, his parents died in a mining accident because the synth, kind of weighed the decision of, hey, I can't let everyone die, but I have to sacrifice people, or I could let everybody die. And it's like,
Yeah, that
technically,
was
according to the laws of robotics, does it really count as harming a human if you're not the one doing it directly?
no Hoodie. This is good for you to jump in. I don't know, like if they're like robotic structures
So
or
it depends with what you consider canon or not. I mean, if you consider just the movies and some of the video games canon, there are different types of androids and different types of directives and I want to say more advanced AI compared to
Yeah,
other
because we
models.
see in AVP you have the purely combat synths who are definitely not following the three laws.
Yeah, exactly. So there's definitely different. I don't know if you want to call them models or upgraded AI units. I'm not sure what exactly you would call them, but there
Well, it
definitely
seems like
are a
model
plethora.
upgrades because you have Ash, and then in Aliens they refer to Ash as going rogue as, oh, it was a programming error. They were a little glitchy. That's all.
And we went to Bishop, and we went to I can't remember the girl's name in episode or Alien 4.
Yeah, I can't really remember her name either. That just shows how memorable that movie is.
Winona Ryder. Let's just say Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been, especially like I said, I don't know what you guys consider canon or not, but there's a ton of Dark Horse comics that also expand on the lore and that such. But I really want to talk about this movie. Tobias, I have a question for you though. How did you like the xenomorphs design? Like just from a practical looking at it standpoint, how did you like it?
I liked the xenomorph as basically being the drone form. It made sense to me that it's like, this is the very first one. Of course, it's going to be a drone. It's not going to be a warrior. So it's like that nice smooth head, the way it kind of blended into everything else. It worked very well for the tension building they wanted to do.
I loved the fact that they chose to go the practical route. Of course, there's some CGI in there,
Yeah,
but
there's a little bit, but the CGI seems like it's more just to touch things up.
yeah, exactly. And I appreciate that so much because they could have easily went, full CGI
They
like
could have
they
gone
have.
full Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. Like full Disney, full Marvel, and they chose not to, which I really appreciated, and it shows in the movie, I think.
Like I really like that whole scene where they're watching the monitors, like, oh, it's clear, it's clear, and there's like, wait a minute, there's something moving there. You just see its head like slowly move,
Yeah, it's great. It's great tension building when they're showing the xenomorph, and
and how well
overall,
they blend in.
I didn't expect to see multiple aliens. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I was kind of
Um,
surprised by that too, but at the same time, it's like, well, this was a space station, and they had a lot of facehuggers in cryostasis.
and that's another thing too. I feel like these face huggers were more aggressive than we've seen in the past. The way
Definitely a
they
little more aggressive.
ran around and chased, and It just those scenes with the chase, the face huggers were very, very intense. And
It
when
reminded me
they,
of Alien Isolation.
yes, yes, the
Like
whole
those facehuggers
movie
were
took
aggressive,
inspiration from Alien Isolation. If you look at the sets and the set designs, it looks like a level straight out of the game.
and I loved it.
Same. I really appreciate things like that, and you can tell the director, and obviously I don't know how much Ridley Scott was truly involved in this. When they say someone's a producer, that just means they looked at it, doesn't mean they necessarily did anything.
Yeah.
But I feel like the crew really put some passion into the project. You could tell they liked it. Now I know Malty thinks there might have been a little too much in there. What do you think, Malty?
I think we saw about 5 different iterations of Alien films throughout the years, all trying to be sequestered into one movie, and I just think that wasn't the right way to go. And from just our own little talks and things that we've seen online, I think everyone kind of agrees it kind of falls apart by the end because it just tries to go. It tries to
Full Alien
run,
Resurrection.
yeah, or Prometheus running in the same thing as the sphere that's going to topple on Charlize there, and it's like, get out of the way, just dive to the left. You don't have to go full retard with this and just like blow everything. The CGI ends up looking absolutely god awful in the end. That last little
Yeah,
part
that
where the
last creature was like it was wow, that is something really strange, but it wasn't strange in like a freaky, disturbing way, like you might think of like a Lovecraft creature. It was like, what the fuck were they thinking?
See, it's funny you say that because I went with my mom and my sister the second time to see this movie, and they both thought that hype, whatever you want to call it, hybrid, they
Yeah,
thought it
just
was
a hybrid.
creepy as hell.
Really? Because it
So
really didn't seem
well,
creepy.
it was
I
just an
don't
And
know.
again,
anorexic engineer. That's all it looked like was an anorexic engineer.
it was an anorexic engineer with a tail.
Yeah, and a giant gaping hole in the front.
So I my take on it is, why did they do it? That's my number one question. But on
My
the
question is,
flip
why did it
side
look
of
like an
that,
engineer?
I can see just from normies seeing this movie, they don't if they haven't seen Alien 4, they don't know much about the lore. I don't think normies care. They just saw something weird. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
they never played Aliens Fire Team or Dark Descent, where we see much better variations of alien hybrids.
Well, Tobias, to go back to your question you just asked, why did it look like an engineer? I wonder if it was because one of the first times that this thing had been created, and if the engineers, based on lore, like if the humans are from that same DNA line, just way diluted, maybe that's why impregnating the actual human child that was in that girl's belly
But it
with
still
like the alien
makes sense,
thing
even with
might have
that
made it
thread
turn
to
into
go.
something like that.
Yeah, even with that thread, it still wouldn't make sense to go back to pure engineer. It would still have to have a lot of human DNA mixed in there.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I'm just trying to say, like, is this some kind of reasoning they might say? I completely disagree with it, but
Yeah, I just didn't
just trying to
understand.
play devil's advocate.
And at the same time, there was that whole scene in the lab where they're talking about it, like, oh, well, this is what this special serum is supposed to do. It will rebuild your bones, and you're watching the rat kind of like reconstruct itself. And then it's like, oh, if once we leave, you notice the giant freaking blob thing it turned into. But then
Well,
if you
Mm-hmm.
look
okay,
at it, you realize that blob takes up like half of that table. How did nobody see it? Why did nobody notice
here
the
to
giant
tie onto your
moving
question
blob?
and adding on to what you guys are talking about here, you guys both saw Prometheus, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Prometheus
Unfortunately,
underrated
I also
movie.
saw
confirmed
Covenant.
it is underrated. I agree, but Prometheus did confirm that humans and engineers share identical DNA. So, with that said, the engineers created humans. Kay's child was mutated with the black goo. It makes sense. I was just saying, like it's a different variation of the black goo where we haven't seen before, as far as you
Yeah, it's like
know.
a distilled version.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't seen
Or
we've seen in
not really
Prometheus
just
in
what do
those
they call it?
canisters, those
Yeah.
canisters in Prometheus, but we never really saw anything come of it. So this was like the first time we've actually seen it, mixed with something, which
Yeah, but at the same time, here's what gets me. Why did it have alien DNA? Considering she wasn't face hugged. They literally say she wasn't face hugged because she was already too badly wounded.
well, I think that this was never confirmed, but I think that they're trying to say that the xenomorph comes from that black goo.
I mean, that would make
Yeah,
sense.
they shoved the thing into her because whenever she fell, she was really like injured and everything like that. They shoved it in there because they were like, we don't know if we're going to be able to get her to a med bay in time to save her or the baby's life. So they put the black goo in her,
Well,
and then
she
she already had the baby
herself.
still living in there. So well, you know how I mean. The goo got inserted into and like obviously goes into the intravenous system where the baby is already living in there, so it's going to cross bloodstreams. So that's how I saw it happen.
Yeah, but like I'm just trying to figure out like where each strand of the DNA came from that made this thing look like it did. Because like when it first shows up, it's like, oh, it's got the back spikes of the alien, and then the tail grows in like a couple of minutes later. Because when you first see it, it doesn't have the tail, and then the tail's in like the next couple scenes with it.
Well, that's actually a portion of this movie that I didn't like is how fast they all evolved. And, like as soon as they were born, it was like, oh, and then 2 minutes later, they're fully grown.
Yeah, that was
even the first chest bursting scene. That all happened within in the movie time 5 minutes.
Well,
where in the original Alien, they got completely out and they were like sitting around the dinner table before.
Yeah, and then it bursted out like maybe hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to get faster with every iteration.
Yeah, this is in the same timeline, 20 years after the events of Alien 1.
Yeah, so at this point, Ridley is still, floating around in the core systems, frozen solid. Mm-hmm. Which I actually thought when they extracted the rock in the first part, I thought that would be Ridley in there.
No, she left. They went to she got back to Earth, didn't she?
No, they found her floating in the core systems, and then they brought her back.
Yeah, they brought her back. Yeah.
But they found her floating through the core systems, and they said it's been like 50 years. And I'm just wondering, were they lying about that part?
No,
like if they found her floating near the wreckage, and that giant ice chunk could have been her cryopod, because it didn't really eject all the way away from the explosion. It kind of got caught.
I guess we'll have to look at a timeline and see what year she was found. Because I know when Romulus was set. I don't know what year Ripley was found out in space.
They say like 50 years.
Mm-hmm. Someone's actually already made that, and if I had thought this was going to come into the conversation, I would have brought it up so we could have an overlay for it. But I have seen that and how this is its own standalone that shouldn't fuck with the lore that much, but it kind of stays contained.
But I do like that it added how the facehuggers actually work, like how they actually sense the enemy. Like, oh, they sense your body heat, but they can also hear. And like that actually made some sense to me. It's like these things don't have eyes, so how would they be able to see? That's always been kind of a stickler for a lot of people. It's like, well, how do xenomorphs see anything? They don't have eyes. But if they're sensing heat signatures and detecting sound, probably like vibrations being picked up through their legs, then it would make a lot more sense of like how these things actually know where their target is.
When it comes to the origin of the xenomorph, what did you guys get? Like, what did you guys take away from the black goo?
The one in this one, where when Rook is finally like brought back to life, he's got like the whole tube going up, and it's got bubbling black goo that they've been diluting in order to make those syringes. Is that what you mean by this?
Yeah, I'm but specifically how it relates to the origin of the xenomorph. What do you?
I think it's kind of strange that the first thing the black goo creates is a facehugger.
I almost want to say it's indicative of original sin. Because I know Ridley Scott has tried to use like Christian
3 times now.
Yeah, he's tried to do it in the past. I mean, I know he didn't write this one, but he tried to use it in Prometheus, where the aliens aren't even there yet. The guy drinks the black goo, completely falls apart into the water.
But that's the thing. In Prometheus, there's murals of the xenomorphs on their ship, which means that they've been around.
And we see the worm thing has a xenomorph design. It's a face hugger, or it's a chest burster. But it also had like flaps like a cobra.
So
I'm
I
not.
think that black goo is the source of life, and the engineers extracted the black goo from the xenomorphs.
So the xenomorphs came first.
That's what I took away from it. I could be wrong. That's why I wanted to talk to you guys
That
about
would
it.
make more sense to me. Because like if the engineers discovered this so-called perfect organism and then kind of distilled it down to its very genes and kind of realized, hey, we can use this, that would make more sense.
And
It's
then
not
they
just,
had,
oh, we created this magical elixir and oops, now we made space aliens.
and then David in Covenant created the perfect organism in his eyes, which was the
The xenomorph.
yeah. And then they also had, was it the neomorph in that movie? I
Yeah,
think it
the
was called.
neomorph.
Yeah,
The
the
neomorph
Neomorph.
is the one that they killed.
Yeah.
And then when David found them, that was the neomorph.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I will
So
never forget the best line for that movie. I'll do
I
the
just,
fingering.
oh God, please don't
You
remind
said
me.
Michael Fassbender talking to Michael Fassbender, telling him he'll do the fingering. I mean, take that out of context, and what do you got?
God, why
I
would they
mean,
put that?
you've got 20 fingers to pleasure yourself. Like, think of the possibilities.
The things I could do with 4 hands.
Oh my gosh, that's off the rails. Let's go back somewhere else.
So
Hoodie,
I enjoyed seeing, new things. Of course, I'm not the biggest fan of the ending with the whole hybrid, but
Yeah. I do like that
overall
they added the cocoon stage.
that was awesome. That was a
That we
Mhm.
completely
actually
new.
see, like, hey, the chest burster came out, it ate something, and then it kind of cocooned itself up to start metamorphosizing into the full-blown xenomorph.
Yeah, it was a nice touch. And towards the end of the movie, before we got to the hybrid scene, one of my, if not my favorite, I don't want to say it's my favorite yet. I love the scene where they went zero gravity and she was floating around the acid. I just thought that scene was so badass.
It was a great scene, and it made like logical sense because it's like, hey, this stuff can bleed through the entire ship, but it
Yeah,
can't if it's not moving. If it's
just a
not
cool
on the
idea.
ship, if it's in the air and not touching anything, it's essentially harmless.
Cool
You know,
idea
not
that was
like not
executed
harmless,
very
but it's
well.
not going to eat through the ship and suck us all out into space.
Mhm. It was almost like it was taken straight out of a video game, but like the best kind of video game scene. We're
Yeah,
like, okay, this is almost like the Mission Impossible scene where you have to come down and avoid the lasers while also putting in a little like sci-fi horror aspect. Where like, oh, if this touches you, it's eating through your skin, and if you shoot too many
and they
bullets,
actually
it's going
do
to
show
blow
that
apart
earlier in this
everything.
movie. They show
Yes,
that
they
with the
do.
cousin getting. I think it's the first time we ever see anyone actually get killed by just the acid.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it literally ate
he
through
got ate
his
up.
fingers and then his face. And then it's like the only part of that I didn't like was the sudden like, oh, now his chest is gone. It's like if it's eating through him slowly, shouldn't he be screaming that entire time, not just suddenly dead?
Yeah, probably.
I
I
mean, it
think
still
they just
takes some
wanted
time
like
to go
it
through
got to his
organic
heart
stuff.
and made his heart explode because that one last one that went through his chest, like that big little globule went
Yeah,
through his chest,
yeah,
and
that
like
makes
that
sense.
just ended
Like
everything, made it
I kind of
explode.
wish they had made that a little more clear because it's like from what they showed, it just looked like he just suddenly stopped. It didn't really show that it dripped into his chest and directly onto his heart.
Yeah.
It was just he suddenly just stopped moving.
Do y'all think that he was? Because I have a sneaking suspicion that he was the father of that baby.
Might have been.
Some asshole. She didn't want to tell her brother because they were best friends. They ran in the
Some
same.
asshole.
Yeah,
That's what she said.
yeah, she literally did say it.
The main character or the main guy character who gets his eyes chomped out by the xenomorph. That's his sister, and then
After
his best
getting meat
friend,
hooked.
and then she's trying to hide the pregnancy and hide who she's pregnant from. It's like, yeah, it's that
Yeah, it's
dude.
a little suspect.
He's pretty skeevy.
Yeah, it
Very
seems like the
much
kind of
so.
thing that kind of guy would do.
Yeah.
Like,
And,
he
you
was
know,
also like one of those characters. Like, yeah, you know the kind of guy. Like, you may not be friends with him, but you definitely know somebody who's like this guy, who doesn't give a damn what other people think, and he'll just do whatever he wants.
You won't, mate.
I guess one last thing I want to touch on to ask you guys. This movie to me, I don't want to say it was the weakest like cast of characters but I really
It
didn't
was
care
stronger
about
than
most of them.
Prometheus.
I didn't care about most of these characters. How did you guys feel?
I kind of enjoyed the main brother and sister pair.
Them I did, but the rest of the crew I just didn't
Yeah,
really
the rest of
care
the crew
for.
could have been, kind of interchanged. Although I did like the bald Chinese gal. I thought her character was actually kind of interesting because she reminded me a lot of like video game pilots kind of thing. Like, I could see Foehammer from Halo looking like that.
Okay.
She definitely seemed like she was made to look typecast, but I think the actress did a good job with what she could.
I just like
They
how they
kind
did
of gave
her
her like the
entire
little
death.
like sneering lip and everything like that. Like I'm a badass because I'm a bald bitch. But I think she actually did a pretty decent job. She wasn't in there for long, so I don't really know
No, but
much
I
about
do
her
like how they killed
character.
her off. I
Yeah, that
do
was
like
good.
that you slowly saw that after she kicked the controls, that you see her kick the controls, and then you see the ship slowly drifting away, and then you get that trailer shot of the headlights going through the window as it drifts aside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, now that part of the trailer makes sense.
I think Andy and what was her
Yeah,
name?
Andy was
Rain's
great.
ex-boyfriend. The other main guy, I think they were the strongest characters in the movie. Not saying they were well. Okay, Andy was great. That dude bang up, phenomenal job.
I think
But it's
besides Bishop, Andy might be the best synthetic we've seen in the movies.
yeah.
Yeah,
Although
I
I
can
do
agree
like
with
that
that.
the Rook looked a lot like Ash.
Well, I mean, it was Ian Holm with horrible CGI, and that just looked god awful the entire time. They should have kept him on the little screen once he plugs into Mother. They
Yeah.
should have kept him. That should be the
Agreed.
only way they interact with him the whole
Agreed.
time. That would
Major
I
would
kind of
have
liked when he
worked
was
way
just kind
better.
of sitting there, but it's when he started trying to move and stuff, then it kind of was like, yeah, this is CG. But it's like when he's just sitting there, it looked a lot more like the effect they used in the first movie.
What else did you want to know, Hoodie? What else did you want to get off your chest?
I one thing that's very controversial. Did you guys enjoy seeing Big Chap?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh,
I kind of like that they brought it back to the first movie. Like, okay, this is how they knew about these things more advanced.
Okay,
And
Malty.
it
no.
explains, it kind of explains the outbreak on the research station because it's like, if this thing wakes up out of stasis, and it's pretty much an unstoppable killing machine once it wakes up. And we've seen the same thing like Alien Isolation, where you're pretty much being stalked by just one, and the thing's nearly unstoppable. So we've seen
Well,
what a single xenomorph can do. So it makes sense that one would be able to just take out pretty much the entire station. And it would also
it,
make sense. It's like, oh, it's not just a random xenomorph they happened to find. It was the exact one.
it I understand that one single xenomorph can take out like an entire station. I did not like them trying to bring that in. Okay, they bring it in on this research facility that has a shit ton of face huggers and all kinds of other things like cryogenically frozen. And yet, okay, so half of it gets messed up. Big Chap is no longer there, and then everything else, like all of his little minions, all the other alien species are just still frozen. They've never been unleashed to run rampant or anything like that. No, everything is completely contained. The other one's no longer anywhere.
No, it's still there. It's just, innocently being hung by wires because that's how they finally killed the damn thing.
I didn't like it.
Although it's kind of weird that nobody thought to look up after they saw the giant gaping holes in the floor.
That's why I asked, because it's a very controversial thing. Fans either love that they got to see the original Alien again, or they thought it was a bad idea. So that's why I wanted to ask. And you guys both gave me very
I'm
different
okay with it.
answers, which I wanted. My thoughts are, it's a very bold move. I think it worked in this case, but I can see Malty's point and all the other criticisms with it. I totally can understand that.
My question is, what do you think of the smart gun pulse gun hybrid they made?
Oh, it was badass.
Yeah, like this is auto aim. Like
That
this is
was
an aimbot
badass.
gun.
Yeah, you got cheats,
And
and
I
then
love that the way they use it and the way they explain it is like, oh, she's not some badass woman. She's literally letting the gun do the work for her, just like Vasquez says to do in Aliens.
that's what ABF said in our review. That was one of the key points he highlighted out, which was, she's not a badass. She has no idea how to use this gun, and
Like her
she
brother
gets a quick
kind of
lesson.
does, but he's not like a trained soldier. He just knows what this gun is capable of because he's seen video games with it and read articles on it.
I thought that was really well done scene, and I like the stock that the gun had, how it went like behind your shoulder.
Yeah, and then it slaps on just like the
Yeah, I thought that
M55
was
smart gun.
really cool touch.
I like that it made sense that they would have an advanced prototype weapon on a research station.
Yeah,
I mean, because this thing was definitely a prototype weapon. There were only 2 or 3 of them.
yeah.
And then it would make sense that it's like, okay, it's an advanced research station. Of course, they're going to have some kind of advanced weaponry to fight these things. They got to have something. And then they introduce this thing that looks like a combination FAMAS and M55. And it's like, okay, yeah, that is a very good research gun. That is the kind of gun I would expect to see like the military experimenting with. Like, this is kind of what we want this gun to look like. And then you get like the original FAMAS and the FAMAS 2 and all that. And you see that with a lot of guns the military or even civilians use. There's like the experimental ones are kind of blocky, kind of just basic. And then it goes from there. And it's like, oh, now it looks more complete. Now it looks more like something we actually can identify. And then this thing being like a combination of submachine gun, M55. Like I can see this being able to be used by somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with guns.
And it sounded badass.
Oh hell yeah, I love that sound.
I saw it in Dolby, and it was loud. It sounded amazing.
It sounded like the original pulse rifle, really.
Yeah, it was really nice.
And then that they added like this thing doesn't just like one shot. You have to actually like open fire into these things. It's not a god gun. It's not one shot, one kill by any means. And it proves how formidable these things are in a swarm. Because like if you could just take them down with just like one shot, there would be really no threat. But you have to empty an entire magazine to take out like what, 7 of them?
Damn near, yeah.
For the most part. And it doesn't seem like them bleeding on each other doesn't affect their skin either.
Oh, I don't
I
think
was
that's
kind of
too big
hoping,
of a
like
deal.
in swarms, you would actually be able to see that. Like, okay, once they start bleeding on each other, they almost kind of like start corroding. So they would have to learn to okay,
avoid
we
each
can
other.
attack in a swarm, but almost like a cavalry where we have ranks. But I
Didn't
mean, I
they?
don't think they've thought that much to it.
Well, I think they kind of explain that a little bit in the game, saying that their carapaces are actually like specially evolved to be able to resist their own acid, or else it wouldn't be able to be held in their body.
I was gonna say
Hmm.
in Alien vs Predator. I know those are not good movies by any means, but didn't the warriors break the queen out of her chains by like puncturing her
Yeah, by
body with their
bleeding on the
mouths?
chains.
Yeah,
I mean, they literally ran up there and suicided themselves trying to open up the chains with the acid.
and the acid did not bleed her at all. It didn't go through her at all.
No, it
So
didn't touch. It barely did anything to her.
yeah,
It just weakened the chains enough that she could break them out. And then we also see that in Alien Resurrection when the aliens are escaping. They're all looking at like this one xenomorph, and then they
oh
kill it,
yeah,
and then
I
bleed
forgot
through
about
the
that.
ship.
I forgot about that part.
And the entire time, they're only killing it with their tongues. They're literally like tongue mouthing this other xeno's death, and it's not affecting them in the least.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that scene. Now, one last thing
I
I want to
guess
ask Malty.
I guess that means y'all keep Resurrection as canon.
I'm okay with it being somewhat canon.
Malty had a point in the beginning of this. I just want him to kind of explain himself. You said there was hints of every movie, including Alien versus Predator Requiem. What vibes did you get from Requiem?
Oh, I was just talking about the campiness towards the end. Whenever it just gets where everything's just completely nowhere. I mean, completely. We've lost the realm of stuff
We've
being a
gone off the
contained
rails.
movie. Yeah, you've
Okay,
gone off the
okay.
rails. You have to have like the horror movie jump scare towards the end, right as like that thing should be dead, gone, like buried underneath the rocks of the rings of that
Yeah,
moon or planet.
it
And
was
then
the
like it
'80s
comes back
style.
for the
Hey,
last little
this is our
thing, and
sequel,
then you
mate.
have horrible, absolutely horrible CGI, even though she's just like sitting there suspended on like the cable line. And then just like moving around is like you blew your budget. Like, yes, I mean it was great for a while, but then like towards the end, you still wanted to keep it going, even though the tension, the action has long been gone. And it's just
Yeah,
you
like I
need
said,
that
if you cut
final
it like
jump scare to make it like sequel bait. That's what I
yeah, if
meant
you
by
cut it like
that,
at
taking all the way
20
down to
minutes.
Requiem.
Okay, no, thank you for explaining that. That's a good. That's good. I wanted to hear that, so thank you.
Yeah, like I said earlier, if you cut it like just after they escape, right after when she starts hooking him up to the ship to go to that other system, if you cut it there, it would have been great for a sequel hook. Because then you have the ship going to this new colony with the other girl infected with this goo and pregnant in cryostasis. So when they escape or they get out of cryostasis when they get to this new colony, then all hell would be unleashed, and that would be a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully a whole new generation of kids just saw this movie and get interested in the franchise, start reading the comics, start playing the games, and
Watch the originals.
yeah, absolutely. So that's what I hope comes out of this. I don't want it to turn into like Star Wars or Marvel where
No.
they start pumping out, every TV shows and movies. I already know there's a TV show coming out next year, I believe, Aliens Earth.
Would
Don't
that
know
be
how
based
that's gonna
off the
be.
Invasion Earth comic series?
No, it's canon. It's set before the events of Aliens, which is very ballsy. I don't know
How
how
would
that's
that
gonna
even
play out.
work?
Exactly, I don't
Like,
know.
how
How
would
are aliens
nobody know
there?
about these things if they've already invaded the planet?
I don't know.
And one thing I do want to ask:
Hoodie, the
what
way
did you
that you
guys?
said that.
Multi. Why are they making a show before the first movie set on Earth?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. And my question is, what did you think of like the beginning plot, like trying to get fuel for the cryostasis pods? Because it makes sense at some point. It's like, oh, the cryostasis pods have to run off something, and it makes sense that they would have their own fuel source.
I had no problem with that. I mean, you can obviously tell. I know this has been a little bit of topic of speculation. Whenever Rain is going, be like, I put in my hours, my 6 years, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then she clicks a button, and then it changes. It's like, no,
Yeah,
they didn't just magically update it. That bitch sitting at the computer updated it because they were never going to let her leave. So I think that the whole premise made sense.
I
it,
agree with
it
that.
definitely showed the corporate greed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, we're gonna keep you here as long as we possibly can.
And you know what
Yeah,
else I
basically, you're
I thought
never
was
going to
cool?
leave because they're not getting any new people in.
Yeah, and it makes Wei seem like an actual corporation in a sense. They feel more real because they're screwing over their workers. They
Yeah.
don't feel like the big bad evil corporation you see in like cartoons or something. Like they don't seem as cartoonishly evil. They seem more real world evil, which is way scarier.
What you got, Hoodie?
I was just gonna say that the company it's pretty much everything, right? They do everything in this universe, and that's a very interesting aspect. There's a lot they can do with that alone.
Yeah, they're a megacorp.
Yeah, exactly. And they're up to all this shady shit behind the scenes with these side projects, and you know what I mean. Like Romulus was a whole new station that they were running projects and had xenomorphs on, so they can do more stuff like that. And the company can just bury the files and say
Yeah,
this
like
never
what
happened.
other research stations don't we know about that they were doing even weirder shit with?
Exactly.
It was like if they were doing this much craziness with just this one station, what else are they hiding in the darker areas of space?
I want to see a queen again. I'll be honest with you guys. I want to see a queen.
I want to see an empress.
Well, go to your library on Saturdays whenever they have elementary schools. You can see a queen there.
Okay, I will also ask this. What did you think of the sound design? The fact that in space there was nothing. It was
That was
quiet.
fucking awesome.
It was awesome.
I loved it.
And that's probably one of the best soundscapes I've heard or not heard. Because space is supposed to be silent. So like Star Wars and all those other things, you hear the laser fire and you hear the explosions and you hear the engines, and then in this movie it's completely silent every time space is active. Like every time like they breach the ship and everything gets sucked out or it's doing a space shot, it's quiet. Like all the sound just suddenly cuts out. And for me, that felt like, okay, these guys are paying a lot of attention to every detail at the beginning of this, at least. They're being very cautious in how they want to set up the atmosphere of the movie.
Agreed. Sound
Agreed.
design was really good. I really liked it.
Same.
It was just execution towards the end. That's where my gripes really
I think that's
start to
everybody's
rear their
gripe.
heads.
It was great until the end.
Agreed.
But
we
still a
can nitpick
passable
little
movie.
things. Yeah, we can nitpick little things here and there, but I think we all agree it was a good movie until the ending.
Yeah, I mean, I stick with 6 out of 10, so that's what I'm giving it.
I gave it a 7, but I can see a 6.
Yeah, I'd go with a 7. It would be higher if they didn't screw up the landing. If they had cut the ending a little bit earlier and didn't do the whole hybrid thing, it would have been at least an 8.
Mine wouldn't have changed. I feel like I'm being generous by giving it a 6. However, I did enjoy it.
Good.
Yeah. I definitely had fun watching it.
So, guys, you got anything to plug real quick before we say goodbye, or should we just say goodnight?
I am going to try, keyword there being try, to do some streaming on either YouTube or Twitch if I can figure out what the hell is wrong with OBS. So I might do some more Hunt Showdown over there. If Red buys Space Marine, I'll probably do some co-op recording for that. We'll see what happens.
Hell
Cool.
yeah. Is that
Sweet.
just at Tobias on those channels?
I mean, we already plugged my X one, but I don't really put anything there.
Oh, I just like, so we can have Necronaut put it in the description, like give you links and stuff. If anyone wants to find
Just link my channel, I think is good.
you. Okay.
Because one thing I do want to do is put together a kill compilation that me and Red have both recorded for Hunt, because NVIDIA automatically highlights like your kills or your deaths. And some of those can be pretty interesting. So I want to take some of the more interesting ones we've gotten and kind of put together a compilation.
Nice. You still here, Hoodie? Wake
Yes,
up.
sir.
You got anything you want to say? Or are we just going to say goodbye?
No, I'm good. Catch the GCA on Wednesdays. Thank you for watching.
Watch all the GCA stuff.
Hell yeah. Good community. Always have fun.
Go watch Sophie's brother.
True. He's got some good stuff going on. Join the Discord.